Hi, everyone. My name is Scott Morris. I am the Business Development Director for GTS Distribution and GTS Gaming. We are here with another one of our webinars. Normally, these are live, but we had a little bit of time and technical difficulties this morning. This is being recorded, as you can see on the screen here, on the morning of January 14th, 2019. We are here with Matt Hyland, the Managing Partner in the United States for Devir Games. Some of you may remember we had Devir on a couple of weeks ago and talked about a couple of different games from them. We have two new ones here that we're going to talk about. Well, I guess one new one and one familiar one, because one of them is one of my favorite two-player games to play. We're going to look at a game that is very small, like I said, for two players, called Mycroft and Sherlock Holmes. And then we're going to also look at a brand new game called Color Monster, both of which are really cool, both of which have great applications for game stores and retail stores. So this is not a live webinar. We're not going to have live questions with retailers. It is pre-recorded. But if you do have questions, we'll make sure that we have emails at the end so you can reach out to us and let us know what kind of questions you have. Anyone watching this right now, just so you know, between Monday, January 14th and Monday, January 21st, 2019, any of our retail customers for GTS Distribution that want to place orders for either game can do so at 52% off MSRP as well. So you get a nice little bonus on that as well. With that, I will be quiet and let my face that was made for radio sit in the background, and I will let Matt take over with everything from here. So Matt, the floor is all yours.
All right, thanks, Scott. Like Scott said, my name is Matt Hyland. I'm with Devir Games. Once again, we really appreciate the opportunity to talk directly with all of you, or via this webinar anyway. And thanks to Scott and the GTS crew for the opportunity. We really appreciate these opportunities. I'm not going to go too much into gameplay during these presentations because there are better ways for you to learn how to play. And actually, once you have the product in your hand physically, it makes it a little bit easier. But I am going to tell you some key selling points, and hopefully we can get you excited about some of the stuff that's coming down the pike, because we're certainly excited, and we think we're going to have a great year. So let's start off with, I apologize to those who already have seen one of our presentations, but I think it's important to share a little bit of information about our company with some of the newer people. Because although we're relatively new to English game sales in North America, we've been around for quite a bit, for quite a while, I should say. We started in Brazil, or actually a Brazilian company. We started in 1987 as comic book importers. So the story goes that the founders loved comic books, but the only brands that were available at the time in Brazil were the big ones, Marvel and DC. So they sent one of the founders, the guy who spoke the most English, not a lot of English, but the most English, with $5,000 in cash. They put him on a plane to Houston. And from there, he took a bus to Mile High Comics in Denver and made his first purchase. And that's kind of how we got started. After that, they started publishing comics in Portuguese under license to sell in Brazil. They got a couple of key RPG titles like GURPS and Vampire, and that opened the door for us to get the exclusive Magic distribution in Sao Paulo in Brazil with Wizards of the Coast. Now it was obviously a huge springboard for the company, and from there we grew to do a lot of different things, opened offices in different countries. We originally opened in the U.S. to service Spanish-speaking Latin America, hobby retailers in Spanish-speaking Latin America. That was my first job, but we really didn't do anything in the U.S. Until June of 2016 with our first launch, which was Holmes, Sherlock, and Mycroft. But we're big comic and game distributors in Spanish. We have the rights to a lot of huge titles like Catan and Carcassonne and all of the Czech games, code names especially. Right now, our English catalog consists of about 14 games, and we're going to have another 4 or 5 releases for this year. Most of our designers are Spanish. We have a couple of Italian designers, and we are going to have a big name US-based designer, a game by a big name coming out at the end of the year. I can't really divulge that just yet, but keep your eyes peeled.
Nothing like teasers and spoilers.
That's right. That's
good
right.
to look forward to, though. That's cool.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so as I mentioned, I want to talk to you a little bit about Holmes, Sherlock, and Mycroft. This is basically our flagship product. Let's see, it was our first release. It came out in June of 2016, so far globally, we've sold roughly 40,000 copies. We're selling around 2,000 copies a year in North America. It's really a great two-player game. It should be a staple in your two-player game arsenal. If you haven't tried it already, it's super easy to demo. It's the kind of game that you can set up in 5 minutes, explain to somebody how to play, and then leave them with the rule book, and they'll be able to finish the game on their own most of the time, or with a few fairly simple questions. So that's great. And it does have a really high demo to conversion ratio, something that I find in fairs. Is the first launch, well, when we launched it at Origins, feels like 75% of the people who actually took the demo ended up buying the copy. And I know that that number doesn't bear out over all the events that we've done so far, but it's still a really high number of demo to conversion ratios. It's quite surprising. So it's worth it to have a demo copy. They are available through the GTS demo copy program. So please take advantage of that.
Yeah, and just in case anyone may or may not be familiar with the demo program, we have a lot of publishers that are involved with this. You want to contact your sales rep, let them know what games you may be interested in. You can purchase games from us at 25% of MSRP, one copy per storefront per year. So, and as Matt was saying, this is a great game that not only catches people's eyes and like makes them want to figure out what's going on when you have it on a demo table. But like you said, it's like super easy to teach and super easy to get started with. I actually first learned the game at Dice Tower Con that year that it was released. And I was upset because there was a pre-order that you had to get from one of the local retailers there. And I hadn't pre-ordered it, and I was like going home without one. So
oh no.
I luckily got one a little bit afterwards, but yeah, definitely very cool. So
great. Well, I'm glad you like it. Like I said, I'm not going to go too much into gameplay because there's a really excellent video from Z Garcia in the Dice Tower, who I actually learned from him because somehow my publishing team gave him a copy before they gave me one. So I learned from this video, but he explains it really well, and he's very complimentary of the game. So you can click on the link here that's embedded, or of course you can just go and Google it and check it out for yourself. Okay. But anyway, I will talk very briefly about gameplay. So basically, this is not a deduction or mystery solving kind of game. So you have to manage customer expectations in that regard. It's still really fun though. It's a worker placement and set collecting game. And basically you're trying to score points by collecting the highest number of clue cards in a given set. And that set has a point value. So for example, let's say at the end of the game, I have more 9s here than my opponent. I'm going to get 9 points for that set. I don't have to have them all, just the majority. And but I will lose a point for every 9 that my opponent has in their hand. So let's say at the end of the game, I've got 6 9s and my opponent has 3. I'll get 9 points for that set, minus 3 points minus 1 point for each 9 that the opponent has, for a total of 6. Okay, and then there's some other unique scoring twists that make it interesting to collect all of the lower value cards as well. And the way that you're going to get the cards is every day. There are 7 rounds, and each round is a day. And during the rounds, you can go and visit these different characters from the Holmes universe, and they're going to do favors for you. So, like, let's say I take my meeple and I go and put it on Mrs. Hudson. She says, "All right, you can have 3 of these investigation tokens, these magnifying glasses here." Great, that's like my money, my resources. Maybe on the next turn I go and I visit Lestrade, and he says, "If you pay me 3, you can take 2 cards from this line." And that's how I start my set collecting. Most of the play is going to be open face. So the players are going to be pulling from this same row of cards here at the bottom. And then you'll play your hand face up as well. But there's some cards that kind of twist that mechanic a little bit as well. There are 7 days in the game, like I said, but there are more characters than there are days, and each character does something different. So it introduces a ton of replayability because first of all, the cards come out every day. You're going to reveal a new character, and they come out in random order. Plus, you don't always use all of the characters in every game, and it really affects the way the game unfolds and affects the different strategies that you can employ. So that's kind of the gameplay in a nutshell. Like I said, you can teach somebody how to play in 5 minutes, and they're ready to go. And so I hope you like it. I get a lot of comments in fairs and stuff that people say, "Oh yeah, this is a great one that I could play with my wife or with my husband or whatever," because there's not a ton of conflict. sometimes you're competing for specific cards from a line, but other than that, there's really not a lot of interaction like that. You're not like hurting your opponent through your actions. Again, worker placement and set collecting. It sold out in the like at the beginning of December, but we have another order coming in. I believe the container is already in Florida, but we should be back in stock by February for sure.
Yeah, and just in case anyone, if you contact your sales rep at GTS, if we are out in your particular warehouse, know that we do have purchase orders going to Matt to get those replenished as soon as possible from that second shipment here. It's kind of the new shipment that's coming out. So if you do have any kind of issues ordering right now, don't worry. We'll honor that pricing for you for this week for orders that you'd want to place, and then get them in as soon as we get the stock in on it. We should be okay in most areas.
Great, great. And this is a standard, the box is a standard 2-player game size, and it sells for $24.99. So it's a really good value.
You know, one of the things that I do really have to say that I like about this game a lot is the physical size of the box. It's very thin. I think it's only about maybe like an inch thin, which is really good for 2 different reasons. Number one, it's really small and really easy to take on the go. So like you were saying, for couples, you could take that and, you know, take it on vacation or take it, you know, and, you know, play in a bar because it is a really small space that it takes up. But the other nice thing about it is that even though it's an inch, it stands really well. I've seen a lot of games that are like an inch or even a little less, like maybe like 3/4 of an inch, and they're just not balanced right inside the box, so that when a retailer puts them on, they kind of like topple over or tip over or anything like that. And this one, I have all my games on my shelf like vertically. This one has no problem. Like there's no tip, no anything at all. So that's great to see.
Cool. I didn't realize that. That's good to know. See, I'm learning something too. Okay.
Value and education.
That's right.
Speaking of education, I'm very excited about this one.
Yeah, great. So are we. This is the Color Monster. If you haven't heard of the Color Monster, it's the game is based on a couple of best-selling books, global best-selling books that sold millions of copies. And the basic idea is the girl who's the central character in the books is having trouble processing emotions and sorting out like what makes her angry, what makes her happy, and what's the difference between different emotions and so forth. And so in the game, like in the books, we're going to be doing the same sort of thing. Basically, the game is quite simple. You roll the die, you move the monster the number of spaces, and he's going to land on one of these colors that are affiliated with emotions. And every time the monster lands, the player has to say what sort of thing makes them feel that emotion. So, for example, if the monster landed on the red space, which is anger, the player would say, "Oh, you know, I got angry when my brother broke my toy." Or maybe if he lands on yellow, which is affiliated with happiness, you could say, "Oh, I was really happy when you picked me up from school the other day." That sort of thing. And also, if some kids are kind of reluctant to state their own emotions, you could also say, "Well, what do you think makes the color monster sad or happy or whatever?" And so after the player has said what makes them feel a certain way, they get to pick one of these chips here, the chip that's affiliated with that color, and they're going to put it in one of these jars that are along the back here. At first, the jars are going to be empty and face out like this, so you can't see like what's on the other side. But if they manage to get it correct, then the chip is going to sit in here like this, and that means that they're part of the way to having completed the puzzle. And the object is to get all of the chips placed in their jars correctly. There's a confusion jar as well that you can see here up at the top where all the colors are jumbled. If you accidentally reveal 3 of those confusion jars, and then you have to empty out all of the other ones that you've done successfully and start over. If you manage to get the girl and the color monster on the same space, you can flip one of the jars back over so that it's not revealed anymore. And that's the game. Now it's really cool because it gives parents an excellent way to kind of get some insight as to what their kids are thinking and feeling, what sorts of things, what's making them tick, what makes them happy, angry, and then maybe you can adjust your behaviors accordingly or what have you. And you can also communicate those same sorts of things to the kids. And so that's basically the game. in a nutshell, we've gotten a lot of comments from teachers and psychologists who said that this can be a great tool in those settings as well. And you know, who wouldn't spend $35 to have an afternoon and talking with their kid and getting an idea of how they're really feeling, right?
You know, the most exciting thing to me about this game, I'm a big believer that board games help children develop. I've seen it with my own. I have 3 kids of my own. I've seen the problem-solving skills. I've seen the basic math skills, you know, things like that. There's a lot of things that happen, though, that are very subliminal in gaming, interacting with people, dealing and negotiating with people. And there are things that are usually really hard to teach children. Like if you were to sit down and say, okay, son, I want to teach you about negotiation, or okay, daughter, I want to teach you about problem solving with, you know, finances and things like that. It's usually not the most fun and engaging conversation you can have with your kids, right? But when you do it over a game, it becomes much more engaging and much more fun and much more lighthearted. And the fact that this game takes it to a level of trying to drive interaction outside of just the normal learning, but drive that openness of talking about your emotions. And, you know, like you said, like, you know, I was upset when my brother, you know, stole my book or something like that. It seems small and simple to us as adults, but to children, that can be everything. I mean, there are so many kids that I know that, you know, they get that focused in on that one thing, and when something bad happens to it or when something good happens to it, you know, they have a wide array of emotions. And I think that's phenomenal. And I know that, you know, me personally, I've seen a lot of retailers have really developed kids sections for the board games. And I think that this is it's a phenomenal addition to that lineup. So I think this is going to be something really good for any retailer that either caters to family gamers or gamers that have young children, or like you said, gamers that come in that may be teachers or educators and things like that.
Right. Yeah. Wow, that's what more can I say? That's great. That's a great. That's a great endorsement. Yeah. Well, yeah. So with this slide here, you can see that Jessica Biel tweeted, or she put a message on her Instagram about the newer of the 2 books, because there are 2 books. One is a pop-up book that was launched about 3 years ago. So you can see here. And then in September, a hardcover book was released, and she Instagrammed about that. It got 110,000 likes. So this property, on top of the game being really cool and having a lot of nice elements, the property is starting to gain steam. Book continues to sell really well in Barnes & Noble. So yeah, I think we're onto something pretty exciting here. So. Just here, show you some of the game components. Like, you notice that how big these pieces are.
Yeah, those things are huge.
Yeah, and they're wood, and so it's meant to fit nicely in small hands. And it's also, if any of you have younger kids, you know, kids can be rough on games and sticky hands and all that. You can clean these pieces easily. They're hard to break, so it's a very nice aspect of it. Just a few more product shots. Custom die. Yay. Okay.
Yeah, the value cannot be overstated in this game. The size of the components, the physicality of the components, and just the sheer, like when you first showed this to us, I believe it was Essen, and like I was like, I need to touch this game. Like I pick up this game. I want to play this game. I want to hold this game because it looks so cool, right? And I don't think that can be overstated as to how much value is in this box for the $34.99 price point.
Yeah. You know, when we first started showing we had a prototype that we were showing people at Gamma last year, and the universal feedback was you can't sell a kid's game for more than $30. But when we started showing people the final version in Essen, including I think one of Scott's colleagues said, "Oh, you should be selling that for $40." But we came out for $34.99. You can see this is a standard $50 game box, so like Dominion, but it's also a lot thicker. So it's a really great shelf presence. The art's cute, this big box conveys a lot of value for just $34.99. So there you go. That's okay. So we had one really small print run that will sell out. So you got to get your pre-orders in as soon as possible. And then we're going to have another reprint, another production run backing it up in March. The components are being made in China right now. We'll do the assembly in Germany. And I hope to have product in the second print run in my warehouse in April. So
it's actually a really good time frame considering, you know, dealing with Chinese New Year and things like that. So to be able to have something come out around the Gamma time frame, which again, you know, get your pre-orders in, contact your GTS sales rep to make sure that's locked in for you, and then only have to wait maybe 3 to 4 weeks to get restocks. That's really good.
Good, yeah. By the way, we sold in the first wave in 5 languages. We made 40,000 units, and so we're going to be coming back for a bigger, not a bigger print run, but another print run of a comparable size.
That is nothing to shake a stick at in this day and age and the market as it is right now. So that's phenomenal to hear.
Good. And by the way, in almost all the markets, they're sold out already. So we're excited about this. Keep your eyes open. If you sell kids games, it's definitely something you want to take a look at. Okay. There we go. Now, I did want to do just a couple of quick mentions of other things that are in the pipeline. Silk was launched back in December, which one of the ones we talked about in our previous webinar. We sold out even before the pre-order period expired. So I've got another backup print run coming in. It's on that same container with Holmes. So beginning of February, you should look for that. Samand versus Meeple, it made one of their top 10 games of the year for 2018, and it also got one of their coveted seals of approval. They only do 12 of these a year, and we got one of them. So you can go here and learn how to play Silk, get familiarize yourself with the game. And also Papua. I'm mentioning Papua because this month, if you work with the Envoy program, you have a Herald in your area, they're doing a splash with Papua. So you can have them contact me, and my contact information is at the end. Have them contact me, and we can get that Herald set up with a copy so that they can do some demos in your store. And we're almost sold out of Papua as well, so act fast. And this one,
just to make sure everyone knows, we actually did a previous webinar that talked about both of these games. We'll make sure to put that link in the video description on YouTube so that you can link to that one as well.
Yeah, great. And whoops. And if you want to learn more about the game, Z does a great job explaining it. He was very complimentary of it. So you can go there. It's embedded. The link's embedded here, but obviously you can just Google it or search on YouTube. And those are some of the components. It's a light worker placement Euro style game for $34.99. And there you go. Thank you very much.
And as you can see at the bottom here, if you want to contact Matt or if you have any questions, matt.hyland@devir.com is the best way to do that. You're a brave man putting your phone number on there. That is a man who's committed, and I like that. That's good. So
all right.
If you need to reach out to us at GTS, you can contact me anytime. My email is smorris, M-O-R-R-I-S, @gtsdistribution.com. We'll make sure to have these at the end of the video as well, the bookend. But in the short term, Matt, thank you very much. Devir is getting a bigger and bigger presence, it seems, every day in the U.S. So it's great to see these types of games coming out. It's also great to see such a diverse set. I mean, you have everything from kids and family games up to high strategy games and like you said, worker placement games for the enthusiasts and the hobbyists. So it's definitely a broad catalog to be able to fit almost any retailer's needs, which is awesome to see. So thank you very much. I appreciate taking the time.
No, thank you again. These opportunities are wonderful, and we're up for it anytime. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. If anyone has any questions, feel free to leave them below in the YouTube description. Otherwise, we will see you next time on one of our webinars. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.